All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the show. Great to have you. Welcome to the #1 show on innovative teamwork. I have with you again a gem of a guest. Shout out to podmatch.com. Please, again, this platform has been like my brand new CRM. I love it. I love what you've done. I've only been on it for maybe a little over a week now, and this is officially the 4th interview I've done just off that platform. So he took all the administrative work out of what us podcast hosts and guests like to do. And I have another great guest. His name is Clint Rusch. I was listening to him this morning. He's been on a ton of shows, and he's really great when it comes to the concept of team building. Really has really nailed a concept down and a way of life when it comes to team building. As you guys, as regular listeners, know, this is what I'm all about. I've been about that from day one, is taking the lessons from the football world, the sports world, and applying them to businesses. So with all that, Clint, I don't want to make the intro too long, just because I can. Trust me, I can talk. I've been doing this for quite some time. But with all that, welcome to the show, and all that good stuff. Good to have you.
Thank you, Aswand. So good to be here. Really appreciate it.
Now, I sort of started to step on this point a little bit in the intro, but I'm looking at your background. I see the military background that you have. That's something that I'm really excited to learn from you, because that's not something I've never, ever been through. So I'm curious into how you went from a military background to now you're business consulting, you're teaching people how to build teams in the workplace. So I'll just kind of give you an open slate there, run with it, and then we'll kind of go from there. So
yeah, absolutely. Sure. Well, and just to be clear, you talked about bringing lessons from, successful lessons from the football field to business. I'm a Vikings fan, so I don't really know anything about successple lessons from the football field at all. I've just watched it.
Fan, so
Yeah. Okay. So we've just watched our teams break our hearts for years.
One playoff win in my whole, I'm 35 years, I've seen one playoff win. Okay, Commanders fans. All right. You guys, go ahead.
So yeah, to answer your question of kind of how to get from the military to where I am today and to the things that I've learned and whatnot, I think, my experience actually kind of predates that. So I grew up in Minnesota. My mom was an entrepreneur. She built a business out of the back of our house. And so, growing up, I thought it was normal for parents. Like, I thought it was a normal thing that your parent had their own business. Like it was a weird thing when I found out that other kids didn't have that.
Yeah. My dad was the same way. Yep.
Yeah. And so, I still remember, so I would stuff order forms and catalogs and stuff into these old blue manila folders for her to go, for her business. And I remember negotiating to get my rate up from like 5 cents per folder up to 7 cents per folder, and thinking like, I've really crushed it with my negotiation. 10-year-old me really knew it.
That's awesome.
But no, it was like growing up, seeing that really gave me this understanding of the power that small business has and the power that people's work has on their life, right? And the degree to which those things are so integrated. And so when I went into the military, I joined the Army right after September 11th as a response to September 11th, and I was an artilleryman by trade. And so as an enlisted guy, I was a forward observer. And so my job was to be able to call in artillery fire and then adjust artillery fire to put it on target. And then when I went back to school and became an officer, I became an artillery officer. And the reason I mentioned both of those is, one, artillery is the only branch of the Army that has the word integrate in its actual mission, right? Because it's all about being able to bring naval gunfire, air gunfire, or air fire and then surface to surface fires and integrate those in the battlefield. And so again, it was this idea of how do you take thing A and thing B and put them together. The second reason it's important to understand artillery as kind of a part of that journey is when I got to Iraq in 2007, we weren't firing much artillery, right? That was not an artillery war at that point. And so I was in a position where it was, hey, go learn a new thing and bring that new thing to bear for our team. And I remember my boss came to me and he said, we're not going to be firing much artillery, but I need you to do civil affairs. And I said, okay, well, I don't know what that is. I don't know how that works. I'm not trained in that. I have no experience in that.
This is like you in Iraq finding out you're going to have to do a
new job.
Oh my God. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
You don't have much time to train at all.
And what I said was like, do you want to swap me back up to battalion? Like send me back up there. I'm sure they have somebody who's got a little more experience. Like we can make a trade that works. And he said, no, I'm telling you that so you can go learn.
Hmm.
And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, Clint, like Google it, just figure it out, right? And it was okay, we'll do that. And so I went and learned how to rebuild, this sector of Iraq that we had. And the biggest thing that we did that really drove that process was investing in the local economy. And so our sector we had three markets, and each of those markets was suffering from really significant market intimidation. So basically, organized crime cells that were targeting the market, extorting the shopkeepers, and that's how they were funding insurgency efforts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So from a traditional military side, right? Let's root out the criminals. And
Mm-hmm.
so instead of it looking like a traditional military operation, it actually looked a lot like, the way the police would take down organized crime. Like we would work to find the street level guys and like move up the ladder.
Hmm.
But that's great to pull something out. But if something's gone, there's a void, right? And we have to fill that void. And so what we started doing was investing with these micro grants, is what they were called, and they're very small. Just a few $1,000, I think like $2,500 that we would put into a local business to help them really revitalize their business.
Hmm.
And $2,500 goes a long way in Iraq.
Yeah.
These are guys who are buying, generators to keep the power on. And what we would say is, your shop is going to grow. We'll give you this money. We're not going to expect you to pay it back. But what we want you to do is we want you to hire somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's the trade, is you got to create a job.
Okay.
And overnight, like this program had an impact, right?
Hmm.
We're putting people to work. The people suddenly had like this pride of what they were doing,
Yeah.
right? And so you've got this thing where I didn't think of it at the time, but with a little bit of hindsight,
Mm-hmm.
I was creating a version of what I saw as a kid.
Yeah. Like when your mother was, giving you the order forms, negotiating and
Exactly.
making sure you're
Exactly.
creating jobs. Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm seeing the degree to which people's value and people's confidence and everything that we have about ourselves is so inextricably tied to our work.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I
Not to
got out
only
of the
that,
army,
but not to cut you off, but I want to
no,
make,
go ahead.
as listeners, as you're following along, as you're listening, these are people in Iraq who appreciated the small things. All right, they're not the ones that are complaining about, that don't have this amount of money. Again, I can guarantee you their resources were a lot less than yours right now, and that one thing tied into, now I got pride of myself. Now I'm seeing something working, and the fact that you guys made the deal, the trade-off was, hey, make sure you're giving jobs as well. That's news to me. I like these things don't make it on Fox News, right? They don't make
Yeah,
it on ESPN. And you're teaching me. I had no idea that that's something you guys actually would do. So
yeah.
kudos on
No,
that.
it's not the sexiest thing, so it doesn't make the news. I get
Doesn't
it.
make the news, right?
But we created hundreds of jobs in our sector.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things in our sector was furniture production. And so, they were all of a sudden they're making couches and chairs and furniture for people.
Mm-hmm.
And, so what that gave us was tactically, it gave us this enormous advantage of people who had something to protect,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you have a thriving business, you're going to be much more inclined to inform on the guy who's putting a bomb in the street that could damage your business,
Oh my God. Yeah.
right? Whereas if your business is a failure, you don't care, right? But when your business becomes successful, now you have something to protect. And so we were able to co-opt those people and make them our allies.
Ah, gotcha.
The other thing we were able to do, and this is, I think, the bigger one, is we gave them hope, man. Like there's a part where you go, and look, when you're in business, it's tough. It
Mm-hmm.
is tough. Like you get kicked in the nose every day.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden you have one day where you make one sale or you talk to one customer or one employee says thank you or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
And you've got wind in your sails for a month.
Yeah.
And so we were giving those people that wind in the sails.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got back, I said, okay, like now I've got some time to reflect on it. I've got some time to think about it. I can look back on the experiences I had. It's so clear that the path to like really changing people's lives,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the big wave the flag jobs. It's not. it's the ability to impact their lives day to day. It's the ability to help people become a better version of themselves in every part of their day. And
Right.
so, the way to do that is through business. And so I started working in a number of different, I kind of worked through a number of different jobs
Hmm.
because I didn't have any business training. I didn't have any formal training. I needed to learn it.
Hmm.
And so what better way to learn it than to go sleep in the mud and do it, right?
Yeah.
And so I start at the bottom and work my way up.
But that makes me think of a question because I've been on that sugar rush. I believe it was after I went to a Tony Robbins UPW, my first one, where you're all hyped up, this about business, you're ready to go. But then you, like you said, you start these jobs and you run into people. You run
Yeah.
into people that don't have the experience that you had. How
Yeah.
did you navigate that process? Because I mean, that's something I still work to this day. Tons of listeners, the majority of these listeners are business owners, and they
Yeah.
have this great vision for what it is they want to do, but then they run into the kind of the pessimism of the typical employee, the way you're raised to get this degree, you have this certification, I'm owed this salary. If I don't get this salary, I'm walking. How do
Yeah.
you navigate those waters? Because that's really the challenge.
You're 100% right. That's the challenge. So, I'm going to borrow again from my time in the Army real quick. So the Army teaches that there's 3 levels of warfare. Okay. There's strategic, there's operational, and there's tactical. So strategic is really high level, nationally set objectives, stuff that comes from the Pentagon. All right. So for us, when I was in Iraq, strategic objective, grow the economy, right? Improve security. Okay. I cannot go to Private Schmuckatelli on the street and say, hey, buddy, we're going to grow the economy today. And he goes, yes, sir. That's a good plan. Like, it doesn't work, right? It's too high level.
Right. Okay.
Then we're going to jump down to the bottom. There's tactical, right?
Tactical. Gotcha.
Tactical is I say to him, listen, I need you to hold this corner. Okay. You're gonna hold this corner while we raid this house. Your
Right.
job is just hold the corner. Okay.
Mhm.
And he goes, yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Like, I know how to do that. I can put that into practice.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The problem with tactical is it's all the little stuff that you do every day. It's the tasks. You can't talk about that at the high level, at the high strategic level,
I got
right?
you. Right.
If the president says, hey, our job in Iraq is to hold this corner, everyone goes, I don't think that's a good plan, man. That might be a little too focused. Okay.
Right. Right. I got you then.
So tactical, ground level execution, strategic, high level objective.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's operation. And here's what's interesting. In the business world, we talk about strategic, we talk about tactical, right? You hear people talk all the time, like, I want to think strategically, I want to think tactically.
Yeah.
You're missing the point, man. Strategic and tactical are easy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hard part's operational. Operational is the part of war, and it's the part of business where all the success comes from. And operational comes from taking strategy and translating it into tactics. That's all it is. Because I want to accomplish X, I have to do Y. Because I want to accomplish this broad level strategy, here are the tactics we have to do. And here's how they stack up. So let's think about my example of putting money into these markets, right? Putting money into these businesses. At a strategic level, what we're talking about there is growing the economy and improving security. Okay. And when we talk to, General so-and-so, hey, here's what we're doing to accomplish your strategic objective.
Right.
We're putting money into the economy. We're growing this shop. We're growing that shop. And he goes, great. That sounds good. Check the box.
Got it.
But then I have to take that same thing and translate it down to my guys on the ground. Right. And I have to say, here's exactly what we're going to do today. And here's why it matters. Okay. Here's why it matters. Here's the thing that you're doing and how it impacts you. And so a lot of those guys would say, hey, sir, this isn't really our thing. Like, we're trained to go, kick down doors. We're trained to go, like, kill the enemy. And I would say that's true. And if you want to keep coming back here every year for the next 20 years, we can do that. Or we can focus on trying to grow the business, trying to grow the economy, right? Investing in this business and helping these people become self-sufficient. Because then you don't have to keep coming back here. And they go, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. I get the why. Now let's talk about the what. Okay, guys, here's how we're going to go about doing that. Right. And so to your point of, you encounter the person who has the different mindset, who doesn't have that context. My experience is that's when what people are trying to do is take strategy and turn it into tactics. And they're skipping a level. They're skipping that level. You can't talk strategy to a tactical guy. You can't talk tactics to a strategy guy. But operational, that middle level, that's the ability to translate. That's the ability to say, here's how what you're doing has an impact.
Okay, and this is very important, guys, because this makes it clear, especially as a business owner, it makes it clear on who you need to can. All right. It makes it 1000% clear who you need to let go. As you're talking, I'm thinking of it was my first practice when I was at Stony. I played football at Stony Brook University, and we had our defensive coordinator. We had a gap sound system. All right. Then you're gonna love this translation. Gap sound system, all 9 guys in the box, A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap. We had an outside linebacker who's responsible for a huge gap. And what he would do is because he was that athlete, he was that great athlete, he would jump gaps, he would move and go into a different gap. And boom, the guy takes it off down the sideline because he wasn't in his gap.
Right.
That makes it clear why this particular player was not playing. All right. This is why these things translate so well. When you go strategy and you give a broad strategy, you say, look, player X. All right. I'm breaking it down for you, football mind now. Player X, I love you're a great athlete. I love you want to make plays, but this is our system. And when you jump out of gap, when you decide to do your own thing, the guy breaks it. He hits his head on the goalpost. All right. Because of one player. And these are the same things that happen in your job. It's same things that happen in your company because of one single person who you have this broad vision, but they have their own agenda and they want to look good. They want their stats. They want their money. It throws the whole thing off. All right. This is why, again, I was so excited to have you on, especially because I was listening to you this morning. I forgot the name of the show, but you had coined something. I'm gonna give you the credit because you're the first person I ever heard say it. But instead of talking work-life balance, let's talk work-life integration. Because that's what people always say. I need balance. I need a vacation. And, if you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I don't resonate with that. Just like you know what a business is. So first of all, where did you get that term? And then how do you kind of explain that to business owners when they have to make those challenging decisions where it's like, look, got to can the guy or the girl when you've made it clear to them. So.
Yeah, I think so. The thank you first of all for acknowledging that. I don't know if I coined it or I stole it from somebody or whatever. I think there's all these ideas are out there. And
now I'm gonna take it. Then we're gonna just make disciples of us all.
I think what it is it's an acknowledgement that we're never off.
Yes.
We're never off. I've taken time away before to go kind of disconnect and decompress a little bit, but I don't stop thinking. Mm-hmm. I don't. That's not how leaders are wired. That's not how entrepreneurs are wired. You just can't do it. You can't say I'm going to turn my brain off and just not think. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the best innovations and the best ideas and the best ways to solve problems actually come from when we're not in the day-to-day, when we're not in the hurly-burly of the thing, and we're disconnected. And that's the piece where I look at it and say, the idea is integration, not balance, because balance implies that you inherently have to have less of one to have more of the other. Right? You're moving things from one side to the other on the scales. And I'm a better dad because I'm a business leader. There are things that I've learned in interacting with employees that make me a better husband. Yeah. Right. And conversely, I'm better at my job because I've had the opportunity to work with my kids or to go play golf or remodel my garage. Right. Like the things we do in our lives make us better across the board. I think actually where it really clicked for me was we were talking with some friends of ours about, so we live in Kansas City. I lived in Texas for about 10 years before this. And we remodeled every inch of our house in Texas, every inch of the property, actually. We dug up the entire yard and redid the whole thing. Okay. Right. We did almost all the work ourselves, my wife and I. And, I designed our kitchen and then we built it and it was beautiful. And when we sold the house, like that was the big thing that really, that centerpiece, right? Obviously kitchens sell houses. That's what everybody says. And we were showing pictures of it to our friends and they said, who designed it? And my wife said, well, Clint did. And they said, wow, where'd you learn how to do that? And I said, I don't know. Like, I didn't really learn how to do it. I just, grew up playing with Legos. And so you figure out how to make things fit. And, I bagged groceries when I was 15 years old and like, you learn how to make things fit. And so you go, okay, well, just kind of, you fit things together.
Right.
And all of a sudden it kind of clicked for me that these things that you learn when you're a little kid make you better at things when you're an adult. And the
Yeah.
things that you learn in life make you better at business. And the things you learn in business make you better at life. And I
Yeah.
sat down and I started thinking about all of these opportunities, all of these instances in which who I was personally influenced who I was professionally, and vice versa.
Right.
And at the end of that thought kind of exercise, I realized the idea that we want to take away one to have more of the other,
Hmm.
it's incredibly, it's just wrongheaded.
Yeah.
It's just wrongheaded. You can't do it. You can't turn yourself off.
Hmm.
You can be away, right? You can remove yourself from the stress of the moment, but then that's an opportunity for you to think about, okay, I'm playing golf. How does that affect the way I think in business? Well, here's the answer, right? My wife played college golf and she explained this to me. She said, everybody thinks tee to green and you shouldn't. You should think green to tee,
Hmm.
right? And so for her, she says, look, I'm at 110 yards out. Like I have a perfect shot. I can hit it like I can throw darts from 110 yards out. Great. So when she stands on the tee box, she doesn't think about the green. She thinks about how far do I have to hit it? What do I have to hit to get to be 110 yards out?
Hmm.
Right? How do I put myself in a position where I can use the biggest strength I have? I don't know. Do you know any entrepreneur who struggles with that concept? Because I do. We all do.
We
Right?
lie to
How do I
ourselves.
put myself in a position to use the best strength I have?
Hmm.
I hadn't thought of it until I thought about it from a golf perspective. Now, when I think about it, I can't think of it any other way. That's
Yes.
a personal thing becoming a professional thing.
Yes.
That's all over our lives. All over our
And it's important that we point out, folks, that you're constantly doing it, and it doesn't make you any less of a family person. So
No.
so often I hear the excuse of, "Oh, I got to just shut it down to be with my family." You don't have to. You can integrate. Like I love the word integrate your family into your business. And the thing though, the challenge, and I could already hear people saying it. I could already feel the I could already feel the push is the magical word is nepotism. All right. And
Yeah.
again, you and I are sports guys, and you've seen nepotism be positive and you see nepotism be negative. How do you sort of navigate your philosophy when it comes to when nepotism comes up? Right. Because
Yeah.
I grew up in Silver Spring, Maryland. I've watched our football coach put their son here, and the son's not qualified. And then actually, I recruited one kid. I was a scout after I graduated college, and there was one kid his dad ran his entire roofing company, and he pretty much said, that the hell with college, I'll go if I want, but I know I'm going to go run my dad's company.
Yeah.
And again, I looked at, okay, there's some positives because at least he's seen how his dad runs, but then the option for him to go out and do other things, and maybe he was a bit of a talented engineer, maybe he'd been talented at something else. Who knows? So how do you really nail down that issue? Because I could see that being a challenge when it comes to everything you're talking about.
It's so funny you ask about that. This weekend I was watching old stuff on my DVR and I watched the interview that Bill Maher did with Stephen A. Smith. Like I was a couple months ago, and he asked that like a very similar question.
Yeah.
Maher said that one of the things he loves about sports is the honesty of it, right? The fact
Yeah.
that look, you can play or you can't play. It's that simple, right? And Stephen A. said very much the same thing, which is, look, you might get on the field because of your name, but you're going to stay on the field because of your play.
Yes.
And I think that's a really good way to think about it. So I think there's kind of two ways to answer that question or to think about that question. The first is, from the assembly of a team standpoint, right? And the second is from being assembled into a team, right? Being kind of the two ends of the spectrum. If you think about it from the assembly of a team standpoint, at the end of the day, your job as a leader is to put people in a position to be successful. It's
Mhm.
that simple. That's all it is. It's your job to put people in a position where their innate gifts can contribute to the success of the collective, like the
Mhm.
success of the group. And if you say, I'm more loyal to one person than to the group, right? Then
Mhm.
you are not only harming the group, you're harming that person.
Yeah.
Harming that person, you're holding that person back. You're creating a less optimized solution for the group, and the group includes that person.
Mhm.
Um, and I was asked once in an interview, Canada asked me, what's my commitment to diversity? And I said, I have no commitment to diversity, none whatsoever.
Mhm.
I have an incredible commitment to excellence. And what I have found is if you have a real commitment to excellence, you innately have diversity.
Yeah.
Because excellent people don't look the same, they don't sound the same, they don't come from the same places.
Yeah.
If you find yourself with a team that looks, sounds, acts the exact same, you do not have an excellent team.
Right.
You have innately failed at your desire to create excellence. Right. And so I think when it comes to a leader, there's the question of, am I giving this person a head start, or am I holding them back?
Right.
It's important for people to have to earn that stuff. It's important, like that's the value that we create. That's the self-actualization we get.
Yeah.
The other side of that is thinking about it from the standpoint of the individual. And when I got back from Iraq in 2009, I went to work for a trucking company, and I had led men in combat. I had 8 years of military experience.
Right.
I had a pretty good resume. I had a pretty solid resume.
Right.
And I was a trainee. I was a manager trainee when I got out.
Yeah.
Sitting next to me at my training was a kid who had graduated college 3 weeks earlier. Okay.
Yeah.
So my 8 years of experience leading men in combat and his 3 weeks of experience post-college were considered the same thing.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like there were a lot of guys that I got out with who when I would explain that, they would go, well, that's ridiculous. And it didn't bother me at all. It didn't bother me in the least. And look, that guy who was sitting next to me is a phenomenal guy.
Right.
I still get to watch him succeed from afar. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
And I have the utmost in respect for him, but I knew that it didn't matter that we started from the same starting line because my car had a bigger engine.
Right.
I had all the things I had learned in those 8 years, and I got to just, okay, I know I've got them. It's not like I lose them. And so looking at it from the standpoint of an individual, I think that the important thing is to not focus on the starting line, but focus on the finish line.
Right.
Understand that you're going to be competing against people forever. Some people are going to have advantages, some people aren't. I've taught my kids fair is a place you go to get a funnel cake. And that's it, right? Like life isn't fair.
Yeah.
So, okay, deal with it.
I think the two most important takeaways for you guys that are listeners is, number one, you got to stay away from the comfort zone. The comfort zone of you just being comfortable. Hey, this person has this degree, this person has that license. Okay, you're hired on the spot. I've seen that happen too often. And you got to more so focus on performance. Stay away from the comfort zone and focus on performance. Just like the example I gave you with this linebacker who had all the intangibles, was a good-looking player, but he didn't have it up here. He couldn't stay in his gap. You're going to be ruined. It's the same exact thing he's saying, is when it comes to your performance on the field, which means you have to create measurables. All right. You can't just throw out a salary and say, all right, I'm going to give this person a salary and you live happily ever after. I'm going to give you insurance. I'm going to give you all these things that are creating a comfort zone. You're removing, I think it was one of the sharks that said, a salary is the one thing that people give you to take away your dreams, because now you're given year after year after year of this amount of money. You forgot how to perform. And that's what happens. That sadly happens too often. And that leads to, wars, things that you've gone through, third world countries. All this is a laziness because folks don't have measurables and they're in their comfort zone for so very long.
Yeah.
That part is key for you as business owners. And I mean, again, listen, Clint, I could actually talk for hours with you. I really for hours upon hours, but I do want to be respectful of your time. Can you just tell people, what do you have coming down the pipeline? What's next? How can they get in touch with you? You feel free to go ahead and plug away.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am actually in kind of an interesting phase of my professional life right now. Doing some consulting for folks, but currently I'm in the search process looking to buy a business. So hopefully, within a couple of weeks here, we'll have something that's the next step for me and the opportunity to grow another small business and get to do that. in the interim, and I would imagine beyond that, certainly do a lot of consulting for organizations and for individuals. Best way to get in touch with me is clintrusch.com. There's a pesky C in there, so it's CLINTRUSCH .com. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there pretty much constantly. So those are the two best ways to get in touch with me. I love working with business leaders. I love working with first-time leaders. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love the opportunity to sit down and just solve problems with people, and help them become a better version of themselves. Because ultimately, that's the greatest gift we can give each other.
Is there a criteria for the business that you will be looking to invest in, just in case anyone's listening?
Oh man, that's a great question. So biggest things are, want to make sure there's technical expertise staying in the business, because I don't bring the technical expertise. I know that. I'm looking for probably, something that's generally recurring revenue. And as far as industry, generally agnostic. I'm located in Kansas City, so ideally, in this area, but I'm open to travel or potential relocation. Honestly, at this point, I've seen a number of opportunities, and it's just evaluate them as they come.
Well, yeah, man, keep us posted. We'd love to have you back on to talk about what you decide to do, and see how we can work together, because this has been great. I think it's been a huge lesson for a lot of the business owners. I actually just put out an episode. I've worked for 6 different gyms that have gone out of business. So hopefully those owners are listening and they could understand the problems that they've had. If you just want to hire your trainer or hire your members, again, these are the issues, the things that we talked about and I've warned you about, but hey, they didn't want to listen to what I had to say, but now your business is out of business. So with all that, Clint, the way I close out all my shows is I have you use your imagination a little bit. I want you to think back to when you were that little boy and you saw your mom, getting order forms, getting everything together. I want you to pretend he clicked in, and then actually you can go back to September 11th and when you saw everything that happened and the things that pulled you. So pretend that young Clint just came into the Zoom room, give him some words of encouragement about what life is going to be like, and we'll officially close.
All right. Man, that's a great question. So I think the words of encouragement I would give, one, life is very simple. It just continues to move. Whatever you feel today, you'll feel transitionally tomorrow, and even less the next day, and even less the next day. And that's true positively and negatively. So anything that you encounter that's great, it's going to subside. Anything that you encounter that's bad, it's going to subside. That's just kind of how life works. And the secret to life, therefore, is very simple, which is go first, go positive, and don't quit. And if you do those 3 things, you'll be fine in everything you do.
Amen. Amen. We'll drop the mic with that. All right. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.